Another episode is here. I'm Scofray and I are the Coach Scofray podcast. We are committed to your commitment, wanting to see how best we can use coaching as an integrative intervention in an innovative way. Today, I happen to have in the office, our studio, one of the beautiful people who touched my coaching journey in a very unique way. I think somewhere 2023, Malcolm Phillies, the director of Africa and Europe of the International Coaching Federation, had mentioned to us to say, okay, Scott, you need to meet this lady. And he had done the same thing to her because she was going to come to Ghana. And the first time we met in Labadi Beach Hotel, it was a fascinating conversation about coaching. And one of the questions, and okay, you should always know coaches love to ask questions. So one of the questions she asked me was, so with all the hours you've made, why not MCC? And I paused and I said, this is a challenge thrown to me, and I have all the hours indeed. So what was stopping me? And I was busily putting in place ICF Ghana chapter, something she was also glad to hear about. So today in the studio, in the office, in our small way, I have Ruth Kudzi. I'm excited because she is married to a brother, and it gives me the comfort that this is home. And one of the things also that I love about Ruth is her commitment to using coaching to transform lives. She is a master certified coach and the CEO of Optimus Coach Academy. Ruth, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me here. It's so great. It's so great.
I'm glad you came with the family so I could also see them once more. And as I said earlier on, Ruth, I just want us to explore your coaching journey. Coaching was not your first option.
No.
Why coaching?
So even though it wasn't my first option, it wasn't where I started my career.
Exactly.
It was, I'd heard about it. So when I was at university, I studied management and psychology, and in management, they were talking about leadership, and they were talking about coaching leaders. And they were saying that the best leaders are coaching leaders, and they encourage people, they support them, they help them find their own solutions. And I remember even thinking then, that sounds really great. But my idea of coaching was that it would be so my stereotype was it would be an older person, maybe in California, on the phone, who had got everything sorted out and was maybe giving advice. Oh. So I think I knew it from a kind of commercial sense that we have these the best leaders are coaches. I knew that, but I also didn't really know how you could be a coach. So there was definitely a little bit of kind of conflict there. And I also felt that I was very young then to be pursuing. So a belief, I had a belief that you have, especially if you're a life coach, you need to have lived life. You can't be 20, 21. So that was my first kind of, what's this? And then in my 20s, I worked in recruitment. So in recruitment, my job was helping other people get jobs. And I remember, my candidates always did really well, but I used to be asking them questions. Like I remember this one candidate, and he went for an interview and he called me up afterwards and he said, Ruth, it went really badly. And I was like, well, what do you think went badly? He said, well, first of all, I was wearing a t-shirt, and when I got into the company, everybody else was wearing suits and ties.
Oh my!
And I was like, okay, so what have we learned here? And he was like, I need to research what people wear before I go for interview. I was like, yeah. And I said, I said a little bit of advice, not pure coaching. You could ask the interviewer, or I can ask, what is the dress code? Okay, so we've got that. But I'd also I asked him lots and lots of questions like how could you prepare better? When you realise you're wearing, because actually the thing that didn't get him the job, it wasn't that he was wearing a t-shirt, it was that he was wearing a t-shirt and then he made that mean so many things. So he didn't show up. Yeah. So he was taking, I'm different. And we know what that does to the brain and the nervous system. He was taking that to mean, I'm not good enough, so I can't do it. And so then he wasn't his best. Whoa. So I did a little bit of what I would say is coaching light there. And then I became a teacher, and I worked in education for about 12 years. And at that time in the UK, we were really, really, really obsessed with growth mindset.
Yeah.
So I started to understand all of that, and I just loved it. And you'd see it day in, day out, like the children that thought they could improve.
Of course.
And the ones that thought, oh, my mark is because I'm smart or I'm not smart, didn't improve. And it's crazy.
It is.
And then that's when coaching really, we started talking about having a coaching culture in the schools. We started talking about building coaching skills for the young people, for the, as a way to develop the staff. Because what was happening is, and I found this in my leadership, I'd be saying to people, you need to do this, and telling them, and then they weren't doing it. And I remember speaking to my coach and saying, I need to do something. I remember sending her an email, and I sent her an email and said, I've just had this must be about 2010. I've just had a really bad experience with one of my team. I feel like each week I tell them what to do, and each week they come to me and they haven't done it. So I was like, I've had this for about 4 weeks. I can't keep doing this. It's not good for me. It's not good for her. Like, there's no point to the meetings. And I sent the email to my coach. So I had a coach at that point, and I went for a walk, and our school was on a really big site. So the walk took me maybe half an hour. I came back, and in that time I was like, oh, I need to coach her. I need to ask her, rather than saying, you do this, what do you think? And I think that was, I'd already knew that I wanted to use coaching. I'd already had some coaching skills training, but that was when I was really like, okay. And it wasn't like she suddenly went from not doing anything to doing lots. I mean, it's not a magic wand.
Not at all.
But our relationship got better. She actually started using those questions with some of her team. I started using those questions with the team. She felt more valued because I was asking her what she thought. She'd been in the position for a long, long time. And so I'd say it transformed, but it didn't suddenly become amazing. But did she actually take more action? Yes. Was she more engaged? Yes. Was there less resistance? Yes. And actually, when we then started using coaching for that whole department I managed, we started looking at it with the young people, and they were building coaching skills. And it did start to transform how people showed up, and it started to transform how they thought and how they felt. So that was, I'd say 2010-ish was really the turning point where I was like, I prefer this. I prefer doing this to anything else, but I still didn't really know how I would use it.
I love the beauty of calling your coach, and when you move, something emerges. So when you went for that walk, something emerges. Okay, so what if I stop telling her, and instead of asking, like an invitation for her to be part of the conversation? And one thing I heard you say that touched my heart was when you started asking questions that could bring about shift and everything. She also started asking her downline using questions. So at a point, you became a coaching team, like a team of people, teachers, teammates, that you found that asking questions that bring relevance actually also unlock the doors for others to show up. How did you say, at what point you say, okay, time out, full-time coaching?
Oh my gosh. So that took 6 years from that moment. So what happened after that, I went to a different school, and from the outset, my approach was much more coaching. So we used that across the school. So the people that I managed, I'd be saying to them, what do you think? You give me the answers. And obviously, if there are gaps, we'll look at them. So that was a real shift. And when I was at that school, so I think that was 2012 onwards, I started doing more training. So I was really committed. So I did my first NLP. I did at that point, I wasn't entirely sure about the difference between different things. So I did some CBT training and therapy. And I found that, because I'd had CBT in the past, but I found that I didn't like that as much. I didn't find it as easy. I remember some of the assignments that I found the hardest were the CBT ones, which is really interesting. Yeah, I don't know. So I did that. Then I did some coaching. So first of all, I just did because I'd done training at work, I just did some online stuff. And then I graduated to do the ICF. And then I did a postgrad. So I spent about 6 years really immersed in training. And I remember Mr. Kudzi. I love the Ghanaians always say Kudzi. We say Kudzi.
Yeah. We're
pronouncing it wrong, not you, obviously. So Mr. Kudzi, I remember saying to him, I went to this weekend thing, and I said, I'm going to invest this money in this coach training. What do you think? And he said, I don't know if he remembers, that any investment in yourself is a good investment. I know. So I did that, and I still didn't really know how I would use it. So didn't really know. Then, so probably about 2 years in, I then had our first daughter in 2014. And so I had a year then. And I started to coach people outside of work. So I'd always been coaching people at work. I'd been coaching other leaders actually since 2010. So for about 4 years then, in other schools through a charity that I worked with. So I've been doing that. So I've been coaching quite a lot, probably, with the other leaders, a couple of hours a week. And then I've been doing my own team, a few hours a week, having coaching conversations. But then kind of 2014, 2015, I started doing a bit of coaching for other people. So a few friends and friends of friends, but it didn't really take off. I think I was still I was a new mother. I was focusing on that. So I went back to work. And then in 2015, when I went back to work, I was like, it doesn't work for me so much anymore. I'm working all these hours. I'm away from my daughter. And so then 2015, I was like, okay, September 2015, I'm going to change. I don't know how, but I'm going to start my own coaching practice. And then we found out, probably about a month after I made that decision, that we were having another baby. We didn't find out she was a girl until quite a bit later. And so then I was like, okay, I've got a little bit of an opportunity, because I'm not going to be at work for a while, because actually working full time and doing this and having a toddler was hard. So again, made the decision. Didn't really know, I didn't have a niche. I didn't really know at the beginning who I would be coaching. It would have made sense to start a coaching business, coaching teachers, coaching people in schools, because I've been doing that. But at the beginning, I just started coaching. I coached anyone that wanted to be coached. Basically, some of it for free to begin with, building up your pro bono hours, and then some of it paid. So so that was kind of 2015. I would say that I started doing a lot of that kind of pro bono. I was finishing off a coaching qualification, so I did a lot of reciprocal. And I remember thinking, I'm going to do this as if it's my business, even when I was pregnant. So I was like, okay, so I'll do 4 hours a week. Yeah, so I'll make sure that I have that time, that I'll be coaching people. And then when I went on maternity leave before I had my first daughter, I was like, I think I was coaching up to 10 hours a week, reciprocal coaching, and pro bono, and starting to get lower paid clients. So I was just really building up my experience, because for me, I knew hours are so key. So I think from kind of making the decision in September 2015 to the next year, I'd already got, 250, 300 coaching hours by the time I went on maternity leave, because I'd just been coaching so much. But by the time Sophia was born, I already had all of a lot of those hours. So, and it was because I was like, okay, I'm going to make it work. And I also have to think about what it's like being a coach, because it's very different. I was independent, I wasn't at work, I also had a baby and a toddler, so lots of things going on.
Wow. I think the first time we met at Labadi Beach Hotel, one of the things that stood out for me was you had a certain sense of not coaching for the transactional sense of it, but more or less, I would love to use the word, but for the transformational sense of it. And that was one of the things I sensed about it that got me endeared to you, because I could sense not mechanistic, but here you are being human, and sharing about creating time or allowing time to make a lot of hours, even when others would have used as an excuse not to make hours. You were making hours, and it was like if you just jumped in and you were making hours. And that's my story.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that if you have to immerse yourself. And what I didn't share is that coach that I had, who I emailed, they were so transformational for me. I started at the school that I worked at, and I wasn't confident. I hadn't worked in a senior position before. It was lots and lots of challenges, and they made me believe in myself. They made me be a better leader. I made loads of mistakes. I made a lot of mistakes, but they really helped me. And it wasn't that they were telling me what to do. They did mentor a little bit. It was more the coaching. It was more that they were saying, come on, what do you think you can do? How could you approach this? How do you need to be different? What have you learned from that? And that actually transformed how I saw myself. So I went from feeling not confident to thinking, actually, I can do this. Maybe I'm not the best, okay? I knew that. I knew that I wasn't the best, but I thought I can do it and I can develop. And I think I've always had that thing in my head, probably from when I did my teacher training, of growth mindset. You can get better. And coaching for me is like that way that you support people to actually, like from the inside out, change. That they can change their neural pathways. We know that they're not only in the head, they're in the gut, the heart, and the gut. We know this. I had a very good teacher who told me all about that. But we can do that. And so many people go through life and they think, I wish I'd done this, or I wish I'd done that, or I'm not doing this because, and we make excuses, and we all do. Like we all make excuses. But the idea that you can have a conversation with someone that can fundamentally change how they view themselves and then how they are showing up in the world. I genuinely think that if everybody had coaching, we would not be living in the fractured world that we are.
I cannot agree with you more. What we are using coaching to bring into the world. I think recently I had an executive client, and out of the session, I observed that she has started calling things into being. That now she is bringing things into being. And when that word came forth, so I said, I'm observing. You are calling things into being. Instead of in the past, you were doing things for the doing's sake, to meet metrics, to do this. And that is what I'm hearing you share. And it's also knock on the door of my story. I have coached for something as simple as lunch. That was. So when you mentioned pro bono, mine was okay. I'll offer you coaching, but lunch is on you. And I say this because you also mentioned how you made hours, so that if there's an up and coming coach, they shouldn't start their career thinking that suddenly I get there, but taking the opportunity that a life matter at a time. Because I coach for something as simple as lunch.
Yeah.
Let's go and have coffee. And the coaching session is over coffee and it's on you. And that is how, when you asked me about hours, that's how I made the hours.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to have somebody who have walked such a journey, and I could find myself in your journey. And I want to say thank you for taking the initiative to say, Malcolm, if you talk about this guy, I'm going to meet him in Ghana. One of the areas I want you to lay emphasis on, in your own life, what did you see coaching do for you? For which it gave you the clarity that if it did this for me at a personal transformational level, I want to take a step to see it do for other people. What did coaching do for you?
Oh my gosh. I think it made me much more aware of myself. It made me aware of those things that maybe I was doing that was sabotaging me, personally and professionally. It really helped me to build my confidence. It helped to give me clarity on what I wanted. I believe that through, because I had coaching, I was much more secure in who I was, and that helped me meet my beautiful husband, have our children. It's so interesting. We talk about calling things into being, but I remember as well, like in coaching, I was really kind of, I wanted to live in this particular area. And I remember when we went to look at it and my husband's like, no, we're not going to live there ever. And I was like, oh, okay. And I was like, I want to really live by this forest. Like I can see being in there and how it'll make me feel and how it'll be really restorative for all of us. And then that's where we live. And that wasn't like, I wasn't, all the time saying we need to live there, we need to live there. It was actually, it was a process, and we went and then we spent more time there and we saw it. And I think that it wasn't that I was forcing him. He made the decision as well. It was a joint decision. But actually it was like this sense of knowing that you know what you need. And I feel like with coaching as well, I've stopped being as judgmental. So I used to always be that person who wanted to fix things for people. And I'd say that the challenge has been actually running a business and employing people and managing the fix and the coach. That's an interesting one, which I'm definitely working through, being more of a coach, because you still see those old ways of being come up.
Of course.
Yeah.
The default mode will always show up.
The default mode. And the default mode, when you're under pressure or stress, for me, is still the tell. Like the tell is what I knew, right?
Oh.
So the tell is where I came from. And so it's very interesting. Yeah, that default mode sometimes shows up and you're like, oh, okay. I'm more stressed than I thought. I'm under more pressure. I think coaching as well has helped me be clearer on what I need. And things like, emotional intelligence, actually recognizing, that awareness piece. Okay, that my body is telling me this. I need to listen. Or actually in this space, I'm overdoing empathy and it's stopping me make a decision, because we get into that. We start thinking about, well, if I make this decision that I really need to make for my business or personally, it's going to impact this person in this way. And that's how I see sometimes we get too empathetic.
Yeah.
We start mind reading and thinking, oh, I better, and we don't know, like for that person. So there's definitely, I'd say it's really changed my outlook on life, my confidence. It's really, I feel calmer. I feel more connected. I feel like it's cheesy that I'm a better version of myself since having coaching. And it's I just, in January, I just got a new coach. I've been working with a coach for a long time. I just got a new coach because I wanted some more challenge. And a different perspective. And again, even with one session that we've had so far, I've already started to think about things differently. And so it's about being happy where you are, but wanting to grow. Rather than always being focused. And I'm a forward focused person. So I would always be like, when when X happens, when Y happens, we'll go. But actually, I think coaching has helped me go, be happy where you are. Be content. Because we're not always happy, are we? Be content where you are, but then it's okay to strive. And I think that's the difference with always thinking about where you want to be to actually going, no, I'm here. And I shared on LinkedIn today, actually, that there's always this thing between peace and ambition. And now I know my peace is so, like, I value my peace so much. I want to just have a peaceful, fulfilling, impactful life. But then there's the ambition. And it's about knowing, like, how they interact and how you can have both.
I am so deep into your sharing that a friend I met, she said, you know what, coach, I don't want a perfect life. I want a peaceful life. Like you just mentioned, it shouldn't be getting everything working, but from the place of the peace you have in the moment in time, being present to what you have and what you can use that to achieve. And when clients come to that place of presence and clarity as a coach, because it's a confidential journey, we don't tend to share what goes on for us when clients break forth. What one moment a client, maybe teams, what one moment gave you that it's not just certain, it's not just being content, but a certain aura of moment that this is what I love doing?
Oh, I mean, there's so many. I mean, I'm thinking about a client who came to me who was, who I would say was like a magic wand client, right? Oh! So they literally wanted me to be their magic wand. You know, they wanted to change. They didn't like their job. They didn't like anything. And actually, through coaching, what they recognise is there were lots of things that they liked, and they changed their job. They changed how they worked. They also started to recognise all of the things that they already had, and that for me, it was like the way that they were completely transformed. And it was a client that came to me in person. So I saw, when they first came to me, they were all, they were always late. They were always rushing. It was always something else. So it was always like the traffic or this, or there were always reasons. And I know that we were late today, but that was us. That was us in the Uber app. But there was always something. And actually what they started to recognize is, where is my part in this? And how do I want to experience it? So rather than I'm late, I'm flustered, actually, I'm going to be 10 minutes late. I'm sorry, that's the way it is. What can I do in this? And the way they even showed up in person, they were gracious, but they were not apologetic. They weren't blaming other things and other people. And I think that often that's part of the transformation I see, that self-ownership, that responsibility, accountability, but also that kind of humility that I'm still a person navigating life. So at times I will get annoyed about the traffic, whatever that is. So that person, she believed she needed a magic wand, but actually what she really needed is to understand herself better and to stop. She didn't need more, she needed less. And I think that is something that I see in nearly all of my clients. So many of my clients, they think they want more. So maybe they are a leader and they want to be promoted, or they want more money, or they're a business owner and they want, but most of them don't want more. Most of them want more. They don't want more as in more money, more status. They want more peace. They want to do meaningful work, but they don't want to, but they feel like they need to have more and more and more to do that. And I think a lot of coaching that I love is when people recognize that they don't. So I've had people who've, ran really successful businesses, and our coaching, which was meant to be growing their business, they've sold the business and they've gone back to work in a corporate job, or they've left a corporate job where they were, and they do something completely different, but they feel so much more fulfilled and aligned. And when you were saying about getting the coaching hours, there's new coaches out there who go, right, and I know this so much, right, I need to get loads and loads of clients from the offset. And maybe they're not working and maybe they've got no other income. And the problem is that they're not getting that because of how they're being, because they're not, they're having to be transactional because they've got this need or perceived need of finance. And I honestly think if more people were like, how am I going to build? I'm going to build on the side, first of all. I'm going to build slow. I'm going to build steady. I'm going to build for the long term. That's what really works. And I say that to people all the time, but I'd say not everybody listens.
You know, we were going to wrap up, and the question I was going to ask you was, what would you say to coaches who are just starting, coaches who are going through challenges and everything? And I'm not surprised what you just said.
Yeah.
Because the question I was going to ask you is what you've addressed. This is what people may not understand, but when we talk about quantumness, it's real because we are co-creating an outcome. And the question I was going to ask her, she just explicitly went on and added it to everything. But as we wrap up, what would you say to coaches who are in between the journey?
So they've started, but they're not yet.
Yes.
They're not yet full time. They're not yet. And we live in a capitalist society everywhere. So they're not yet earning the money.
Yeah.
I think this is a really hard bit because actually when you're training or just after training, you're like, I'm going to build up the hours. I'm going to build up my experience. And then there seems to be a big gap because then it's like, how do I leap? And actually I say, maybe don't think of it as a leap. Maybe start thinking about, okay, so again, I say this so many times, look at your network, look at people you know, start to have paying clients, get paid more than lunch, more than coffee, start to build that muscle, but think about what can I do? Like if I'm going to give myself time, if you have, and I've had clients who've done this, who've maybe been made redundant or something else, they have time, they have some money, you can go all in, but remember there's going to be a lot of it's a journey. You don't, even when you're thinking about, anything that you do, you're not going to be the best coach. You're not going to be the best marketeer after day one.
No.
It's going to take time. And the reason I see people stopping is because they haven't really acknowledged that. So I say to people, get a part-time job. Do something that is going to mean that you have the headspace and the nervous system space to focus on the coaching. So whether that is 2 or 3 days a week, and then you've got some time, do that. Whether you're still, whether you're going down and compressing your hours at work, do that. Give yourself space if you really want to do this, and allow the mess, allow those times, allow yourself to maybe make the wrong decision about who you work with. Of course. And to experience, I knew in my gut that person wasn't going to be a good fit, but I worked with them. But now I know that I'm not going to do that again. Or I went to that meeting and I wasn't prepared and they asked me for these things and I didn't have it. That won't be your only ever meeting.
Yeah.
People think, I did this. Early on in our training business, actually, we made a major boo-boo with a client. And it was very easy to say, oh my gosh, this is a global client. They're never going to work with us again. They have, by the way. But they probably didn't even realise. Because for us it was significant because there were 2 people or 3 people. That was a lot. But for them, they have thousands of suppliers. They have thousands of people. So I think we often make one event mean that we're going to fail. And I'd say rather than focusing on that one event that didn't work, look at the learning and keep going. And think about who you surround yourself with. And that means who you follow online as well. Because those messages, so many people will be like, oh, I haven't made X amount, I haven't made Y amount. Have you got clients? Are your clients getting results? is what you do growing? And I always go like quarter on quarter, because we'll have weird months. Like August can be a weird month. December can be a weird month. And then it'll be like, oh, we didn't grow that month. Well, actually, is that our rhythm? Is that our rhythm that December's slower? But actually, and weirdly, January is always slower until the end, because people are getting back into it. I'm not sure what it's like here, but in the UK. So actually, let's understand the rhythm. Let's understand our rhythm. Let's learn, and then you'll keep going. But if you're going into all or nothing, unless you're someone who can just fight through, which is probably not great for your nervous system, but might be great for your business, you're not going to get that. So if you are an all or nothing person, still put everything in place and maybe have some coaching around why you need to do that. But if you're, for everyone else, build the infrastructure around you so you can give coaching space to become your thing. Otherwise, you're not giving it the space and the time, and it won't. And it's the same with anything.
Well, you heard from a coach who coached from a place of mastery, a coach who is built a coaching business, a coach who have walked through her own journey to come to a place of working out of peace, not perfection, not because she doesn't want to make money, but there is something more that when you work from a place of your beingness, the place of presencing, a place of quarter by quarter, like she said, you notice that things begin to unravel. That's why we use the word, you call things into being. I'm going to do this again with Ruth. And the next chapter of that particular episode, we're going to discuss the science of coaching. You heard her mention the nervous system. You heard her talk about things. And this is the new frontiers of coaching. And I want us to dive deep into that. So join the next episode. And I am Scofray and I am Yeboah, Transformation Executive Coach, currently serving as the president of ICF Ghana chapter. By her support and her inspiration, also coach from the place of mastery, master certified coach. Catch you on the next episode.